You've been waiting all week for that Saturday show. Tune in, see what happened, let your troubles go. Work real hard, now it's time to take it slow. Kick back and relax with that Saturday show.
The threat of more nuclear waste and weapons building in New Mexico. But the great news this week is that the PRC unanimously rejected the proposed merger between PNM and Avangrid. Yes, Albuquerque, there is sometimes some justice. Local election results and what it means for our city council. Congratulations to Tammy Feeblecorn in District 7 for handily winning that runoff race. Racism at the police academy and fires at the Islamic Center. A conversation about safety on moving sets and what really happened in Santa Fe. That's coming up. We have a very special guest with us to talk frankly about community policing in Albuquerque and so much more. Good morning, Albuquerque. I'm Jim Harvey, your host, and you're watching another informative edition of That Saturday Show, brought to you by the Albuquerque Center for Peace and Justice, your voice and your advocate for social justice. Celebrating our 38th year of service and looking forward to bringing you our virtual gala on YouTube beginning on Saturday, December 11th. Be sure to tune in and don't forget to donate. We have a terrific lineup of music, history, and stories that recall the important work we do. Be sure to tune in. But let me get this off my chest. 29 school shootings this year so far, with 27 of them happening in white suburban schools. What's that all about? As tragic as they are, it seems clear to me that the rise of white terrorism and the permissive attitudes of communities with leanings towards white supremacy may have just opened Pandora's box. The most recent shooting in Michigan has all the elements that point to the "it can't happen here" attitude mixed in with, "so what if my son is only 15? He deserves his own gun." This mixture should sound the alarm that sometimes something is needed to be done about gun violence and gun safety in a country that has more than 330 million guns in private hands. And finally, what to do about bullying and racism in our schools. APS recently saw the departure of the lone staff person tasked with addressing these problems. Although restorative justice and mediation are still trying to get a foothold in APS, there's nobody there to push it. After all the trouble we've heard about reports in our schools, you would think that hiring someone would be a priority and at a decent salary, not the $23,000 they are offering for this important job. But then again, APS has a history of pushing the school-to-prison pipeline, especially for black children. We have with us today the Southeast Commander of the Albuquerque Police Department and a wonderful guy that I'm expecting to have a great conversation with. That's Commander Luke Languit, Commander of Southeast District.
Thank you for having me.
Welcome, Luke. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. It's my first time, obviously, on your show and in the studio, so thank you so much for having me today.
And you're the first police officer we've had on our show.
I did not know that.
Yes,
Wow.
yes. So this is especially important and valuable to us. It's an honored day. We're glad you're here. So we've been having conversations and we've been reading your comments and in writing, and you take a really exciting approach to what needs to happen around community policing here. So talk to us a little bit about that.
Well, I think it's important for especially myself to always kind of grow and reflect on the experiences that I've experienced here in Albuquerque as a police officer. I was fortunate enough to work the units that, as a young police officer, that interested me. So the majority of my career I spent in investigations. I worked narcotics, and then I did end up going to the tactical section where I worked SWAT and K-9 and bombs. And the mission of these units were really just focused on arresting what we would consider prolific, violent offenders that prey and victimize a community. So my mission was to, just focus on arresting these individuals. On the investigation side, putting together a solid case with all the facts and preparing that for prosecution. And then on the tactical side, the apprehension, right? I had never, being in those assignments, I did not have a lot of community interaction as far as with residents or business owners. And it wasn't until I started working in the violence intervention program, which the mayor and the city administration, the police chief, had started, I want to say, about a year and a half ago.
That's right.
Where I was fortunate enough to be asked to be one of the leads for APD in the violence intervention program. So it was an interesting experience for me, I'll be honest. Part of me I scratched my head thinking like I have no experience working in a community policing unit or anything like that. Like, am I the best person to take this on? But I again, looking back at recognizing my own experiences and what I've been through and how I've grown, working in the VIP program is where I really started partnerships and relationships with different stakeholders within the community of Albuquerque, to include providers and other city departments and nonprofit organizations that really make it their mission to help the community, whether if it's from housing insecurity to food insecurity to just quality of living, resources to get people on the right path or to help pick them up if they've fallen down along that path of life, right? So I met a lot of great people in our community, and that right there, I could clearly see the difference that could make in someone's lives. Mm-hmm. If they're charged with a crime, it doesn't matter. Just we're all human. We're all members of this community, and I think it's important that we help everyone in this community. So to answer your question about community policing, my last assignment, I was in the Specialized Investigations Division at Property Crimes, again, investigations. The commander of the Southeast Area Command, he just retired, and when the opportunity came to take command over in the Southeast, I was very excited and grateful that the police chief, Chief Medina, gave me the opportunity to come here as the commander. When I started off as a patrol officer many years ago, this was the area command that I worked. I worked graveyard in the Southeast Heights. So in a way, I kind of look at it like a little circle. It's where I started, and I hope to finish. So the Southeast Heights, it's an amazing community. It's a diverse community. There's so many different cultures in the Southeast Heights, and I think that's what needs to be taken into consideration, that not everyone may communicate the same way. They may not have the same problems, or they may not view certain issues, as problems that other parts of the city may view them as. So I know myself, having gone to school in the Southeast Heights and having lived in the Southeast Heights, that these are legitimate barriers or challenges that should be given some thought. And when it comes to policing, community policing, a lot of times what I tell people is, the term community policing, that could have several different meanings to several different people, in several different walks of life, or where you're at in the community. And for now, as of now, the way I view it is not so much community policing, but just community involvement. And it's nice to be at that table because there's a lot of issues and being selfish and just talking about the Southeast Heights, there's a lot of issues that, when you look at the root causes, it may not be a police issue at all.
That's right.
Right? But that's where the police department, we're in a day and age now where we've established enough partnerships and relationships with other city departments and other stakeholders to where, hey, I get this may not be a police problem, or it may not be best if we try to fix it, but we can bring the right people to the table, and look at those underlying root causes and address those. So again, community policing, or more just community involvement, because not only does it include the stakeholders and departments that can help, affect that change or bring those resources, but it comes down to the residents and the citizens and the business owners that actually live and operate in these areas. So it's a coalition, and I don't know what the exact word is, but it's a partnership of everyone involved, whether you live there or you're assigned to work there. Because at the end of the day, I feel like we want we want to improve, this great city for the next generation. Sorry for the long-winded.
That's all right. I appreciate that. You mentioned earlier housing insecurity and food insecurity, and I'll throw in job insecurity as well. And, I'm a big proponent of prevention.
Right.
And I know that those kinds of insecurities are major contributors to recidivism, first of all, for people who come out of prison looking for a better life and opportunity after they've done some time. But those insecurities usually result in them going right back into prison. Sometimes they intentionally commit a crime just because they know that they've got a better chance, unfortunately, of surviving in prison as opposed to trying to struggle on the street, not knowing where they're going to sleep, where they're going to live, people rejecting them, from employment. And so, we need to focus a lot more, I think, on deterrence, prevention first and foremost, but even for people that, get arrested, especially for committing nonviolent crimes, what are the alternatives that you think would work best in applying to help people that have those kinds of experiences with the law?
I think there are several alternatives, and I would start with, and again, this is just my opinion now, I think it starts with a conversation with the community. Now, I understand, you're not going to have a perfect 100%, majority consensus with this is what we want to do. There's always going to be a majority and a minority of you agree with it or you don't agree with it. But I think it starts with a conversation in the community, and maybe this goes in lines in the line of transparency about, because exactly to your point, I remember conducting an interview or interrogation with an individual that was arrested for burglary back years ago when I was a detective. And, at the end of the day, what I got from it is when you do have a criminal record and you try to do it the right way and you continue to have doors shut in your face, but yet you have 4 mouths at home that you have to feed. Mm-hmm. You have to keep the lights on. You have to keep and no one is willing to give you a chance, and you just keep on having doors shut in your face. What do you expect me to do?
Right.
And that's a valid, whether I agree with it or disagree with it, to me, that's a valid point. Okay, I can get it. I may not be able to relate to you. I may not agree with you, but I understand what you're expressing to me, right? So to answer your question about, what are alternatives, again, I think in the past, at least I know in my experience, just conducting the arrest. I have the facts, the probable cause facts, and make sure that that case is put together and I have everything that I need for prosecution. And then move on to the next one. Whereas, in my opinion, again, it's my opinion, if I operate like that, I guess I'll always have job security in the sense of staying busy with arresting and, But if I want to perhaps reduce that, that's where I feel like by having a conversation with the community and sharing this information / data / experience, the knowledge that I've just gained, okay, it's been clearly expressed to me that, I don't know how meaningful or how hard this individual might have tried to do it the right way, but he had doors shut in his face. No one gave him the opportunity.
Sure.
So can we work with individuals and stakeholders and nonprofits and businesses, city departments? Can we work with the community to kind of address those issues, right? To where you don't have to resort to having to commit those burglaries because you have 4 mouths at home that need food, right? So I think if the community is on the same page of, at the end of the day in the police department, we advocate for victims, we do, right? And that's one of our main principles. If you're wronged, it's my job, which I'm sworn to do, to advocate for you, right? And we need to do that. But if we can also explain, by the way, here's kind of like the root cause or the motivation for why this was done, can we as a community be a part of the solution to address those underlying issues and causes to where, okay, he may have to be held accountable for this crime he committed today, but the future hymns, the 10 that's going to pop up next week, next month, next year, just because of the way it is, right. Can we reduce that? To me, that's important, and I think as we get this information from current cases or incidents that we respond to, we need to share that information to the right people, so the right people, and this includes our leaders too, so they know, what's happening and what they need to focus on, what they need to allocate, funds and resources on. I hope that answers your question.
That's a great answer. We've got about 30 seconds left, and I would like to give you that opportunity to just talk about what you see for the future and what you would like to move.
To do it in 30 seconds, and I don't want to repeat what I put in my last month's newsletter or this month's newsletter is there was a period in time where when you called, the police came. When you called 911 because we were the only ones. Didn't matter if we should have been there or not, or like we talked about earlier, it's like, is the police really the best people to respond to this? Now, and I think we are on the right path and we're heading in the right direction because now you have fire, you have healthcare workers, you have police, now you have behavioral health specialists, individuals that specialize in mental health issues, you have social workers. What I really want to focus on for this next year's restorative justice is, yes, when you have to make that call, you will have a variety of people that can help and experts in their field. But before you even make that call, if there's an issue that's developing, before it turns into a crime, there is support and there's help for that.
You've made my day. Commander Luke Languit, thank you so much for taking this time. We're going to have you come back because there's so much more we can discuss on this.
Thank you.
But having you here is good news.
Thank you so much.
And speaking of good news, let's go to Good News with Hassani. Hassani, what have you got for us today?
Thank you, and welcome to Good News News. I'm your correspondent, Hassani Olujimi, and I'm Gugu for Good News. The goal of this segment is to inspire and uplift you, the viewer, with nothing but good news. Today, our good news story comes from our friends at the local news station, KOB Channel 4. It's truly an example of the holiday love and kindness. Get your tissues ready. Let's explore a little more.
GEF Financial Agency, formerly known as F&B Insurance, teams up with Action 4 News to help in this very special holiday edition of Pay It Forward. Their home has no heat, no hot water, no properly working fridge, and the single mother with 5 kids who live here must share one twin mattress and one air mattress to sleep on. Their great-grandmother, who asked to have her name withheld, says seeing her family live this way breaks her heart.
I have more grandchildren that are not going to have Christmas presents. They don't have a Christmas tree, and it's sad.
The migrant family travels up north each May, where Mom works the field. In the off-season, work is tough for her to find.
She just not quitting. She sells plates, she sells cupcakes, and she does whatever she can to come up with the rent money.
GEF Financial Group, formerly F&B Insurance, wants to pay it forward. Karen Gonzalez and Ricardo Filisola surprised the family on behalf of the company.
Nobody should go through the things that you've all had to go through, especially during the holidays. So we at GEF Financial are here to brighten your holidays.
Who is Mark?
We have a gift for Mark.
The 13-year-old is first with a toy.
Who's Daniel?
The 10-year-old is next with a remote control car.
Thank you.
9-year-old Jonathan loves his new toy gun almost as much as his 5-year-old sister Lily loves her present.
You like dolls? Sophia the First.
Her eyes just light up. The giving doesn't end there.
Christmas is a time of giving. In the next few months, we're going to go ahead and cover the light bill. So you don't have to worry about the light bill. If it's cold, you'll have lights. You don't have to worry about it.
Thank you so much.
The family also gets a Christmas tree and ornaments for the home.
That makes me feel good, y'all helped us out really well. Good Lord repay you all of you what you're doing.
But Christmas on Pay It Forward wouldn't be complete without one more surprise.
Here is $100, $200, $300, $400.
This is the best Christmas. This is the best Christmas ever.
A family doing what they can to stay strong.
Yay, Lord! Merry Christmas!
Now, isn't that good news? Let's check in with our favorite sassy grandmother, Little Big Mama. What do you have in store for us today, lady?
Thanks, Asani. Happy holidays, baby. And to all your viewers, I just have 3 quick questions for you before I go on vacation and see you next year. Well, the first question is this, you guys. Why did the elf push his bed into the fireplace? Because he wanted to sleep like a log. Okay. Here's another one. Why are Christmas trees bad at sewing? Because they keep losing their needles. Okay, here's the last one, baby. What did the one ornament say to the other? I like hanging with you. Bye, baby. Happy holidays. See you next year. Bye.
She's a blast, isn't she? Well, I want to wish you all a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. This is our last segment for season 1, and it's been wonderful to share good news. Thank you for letting me in your homes and in your hearts. It's been a tough year. We started this season with the insurrection, but we survived, and we're still here, reporting good news. Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and I'll see you right here next time on That Saturday Show for Season 2. Bye.
Guess what? We're back. Thank you so much, Asani. And joining us now is our director, Tom Dent. And we've got a lot of important topics to cover in this particular segment. So, Tom, why don't you start us off by talking about the gala? That's a great way to end our year.
Gala? Well, last year we worked forever and did a virtual gala with Zoom, and people could call in and talk and all sorts of things. It went on for about 3 hours. was very well received. And this year, what we're doing, since we have our TV show here, is we're combining the gala honoring 3 fantastic volunteers. You know, the Peace Center is built on the backs of our incredible volunteers. And they're going to be talking, and we've got 3 great poets, and we have that great soliloquy on Mamai al-Jamal.
Oh, Mamia
al-Jamal, yeah.
Right, oh yeah.
And there's going to be about 8 musical acts. You've probably seen most of them on the show before, some of our better musical acts on the show. And also local bands that have played at galas in the past that are good friends of the Peace Center, like Medicine Drum Circle, Eileen and the In-Betweens, and Los Otros. And yeah, we've been really busy right now. This is the time of giving. We really need your donations. A lot of people are hurting right now. We're trying to get through the pandemic into a much better spring and future. And our theme of the gala is evolution.
Right.
And a lot of what we're doing now, Jim has talked about this on other programs, is we're trying to expand to restorative justice and to work very hard to get the stimulus money to people that need it for rent and mortgage relief and stuff like that. And the Peace Center, for a very long time, you know, it has over 50 groups that are involved in a number of different human rights and environmental issues, et cetera, nuclear issues. And we're going to be hearing a very, very important, very intense report on Los Alamos nuclear waste.
It's intense.
Yeah, I guess when, you know, about 4 years ago, the Peace Center took a big bus up to Los Alamos for the sackcloth and ashes protest of the 40th anniversary of Nagasaki. And as you guys know, most of you guys know, you know, we're the hotbed of nuclear weapons, nuclear weapon disposal, and the creation of weapons of mass destruction here. A heck of a lot. You're going to be hearing later from John Wilks from Veterans for Peace, which is a Pajola group, one of the 50 groups that I mentioned. And so many things could be happening in the future in New Mexico that would just like overwhelm us and beat the heck out of our infrastructure. And protecting this nuclear waste that's coming in, developing triggers for plutonium triggers for weapons, and bringing in all the stuff that they're trying to get buried or put in other states, but they're fighting against that. And since, you know, John Wilks is going to tell you later that, you know, they're secretly expanding the WIP, the isolation plant for nuclear waste, and they're going to take tons of this stuff from around the country, truck it through New Mexico and bury it in WIP. And we really should do something about it because it's very dangerous for the health of everybody in New Mexico.
You know, I personally attended the 23rd anniversary of the nuclear disaster in Nagasaki and Hiroshima back in 1968, and got a tour to see how devastating how damaging nuclear weapons back then, that first class of nuclear weapons, how damaging it was, not only to property, but more importantly to people. And I'm reminded every day that I live on the largest military reservation in the entire world. That's New Mexico. And the fact that they're doing the kinds of things that they're doing here, coming up with developing whole new classes of nuclear weaponry, and at the same time dumping radioactive and nuclear waste right here under our noses, just scares the hell out of me.
And we had Dave McCoy on our program over the summer talking about the low to middle to actually high level landfill that's out at Sandia Labs. It's just covered with dirt, doesn't have liners, anything. If water gets in and touches that, you know, half of the city is like fried.
Yeah.
So it's crazy.
Yeah, it's pretty frightening. So Tom, some other things that happened, and we've got a couple of minutes left here before we run out of time, but
I know some other things have been bubbling up here. You know, there was a school shooting a few weeks ago, and then there's an incident of racism and racist expressions and a gun involved just as early as yesterday, I think, right here in the Albuquerque Public Schools. That's pretty scary stuff. And the fact that APS, you know, has this cover-up kind of attitude about what's going on doesn't make me feel very happy.
Well, we could ask the commander that we had on here tons of questions. One of the major problems, a lot of the break-ins that go on in this town are to steal guns.
Yeah.
And this has become such a gun culture that we have to say to everybody, like, cool it, gun safety, keep it in, keep it in the homes, have parents be responsible. And, one thing that happened the other day that kind of twigged me, being a peace advocate and anti-gun advocate, even though I'm very good with weapons, I do not like them at all. But I saw this guy, he had a T-shirt of Billy the Kid, and it said "Hometown Hero." And, if you break it down, maybe Billy the Kid was fighting for a just cause back in the Lincoln Wars or whatever, but you're basically celebrating a mass murderer. This should not be the culture of New Mexico.
That's absolutely right. Absolutely right. I just wanted to end on a couple other things that at the police academy a few months earlier, there was the sole Asian female police officer who just got pushed out because of racist attitudes, where the cadets were referring to her as Cadet COVID, and she left just in complete and total disgust. I want to follow up on that, in future weeks. And then the Islamic Center. Somebody came along and set a series of small fires at the Islamic Center here in Albuquerque recently. So that Islamophobia is just eating us alive. Those kinds of things are the kinds of things that I hate to see us ending a year with all the other stuff that began this year. And if you remember, we started this show, recording this show on what date? January 6th, the date of the attempted coup. And, I just, you would think that there'd be a march toward reconciliation and cleaning up a lot of this and getting some answers, and we're still struggling with the same crap.
Well, we're starting to hear some peeps from the Attorney General of the United States, Merrick Garland, especially about voting rights. And that's great, but he's got to crack down on these militia and jingo wannabe quote unquote patriots or whatever, and then we've got to break the filibuster and start.
That's right.
And start working for everybody. Start respecting and representing everybody in this country.
Everybody. So speaking of nuclear weaponry, let's hear from John Wilks. Thank you, Tom.
And you're watching That Saturday Show. And we're happy to have with us today from Veterans for Peace, the Honorable, and I call him Honorable because the work he does is honorable, Mr. John Wilks. And today we're going to be talking about all things nuclear and waste dumping and what's going on at Los Alamos. And I just want to get out of the way because there's a lot of information that John has to share. And I want him to have all the time that we can allow to get that information out to you. John, welcome to That Saturday Show.
Thank you so much, Jim. I really appreciate the time to share with you the status of the nuclear threat to New Mexicans. Veterans for Peace, as you know, is an international organization. Our chapter is in Albuquerque. It's chapter 63. And periodically, I publish a document which is an overview of where we're at. If at the end of my talk today, any of your audience would like a copy of our latest publication, we'd be happy to provide it to them. All they have to do is just contact Veterans for Peace in Albuquerque or myself at my email. My email is my name. It's JOHNEWILKS III, that's 3 small letter I's, lowercase, at windstream.net. And I'll provide to them a copy of our latest environmental committee's document.
And I'll be sure to put those up on the screen, okay?
Very well.
So take it away, John.
Okay, so basically, as we all are aware, there is a lot of military and laboratory activity in New Mexico. We have 5 major military bases, in addition to our 2 labs, and also the only low-level nuclear waste interim storage site in the nation in Carlsbad. So that said, we have a lot of nuclear material moving throughout our state in various characteristics, which brings a threat of leaks, spills, and releases. Now, the environmental chapter of environmental committee of our chapter focuses exclusively on health risk. We don't get into use of weapons, cost of weapons, which weapons are what, who's buying what weapon, the contractors. We don't get into that. We just talk about the threats to our environment and to our citizens. So I would highly encourage everyone who's listening to this to watch a documentary which was launched about 2 weeks ago. It is 2 hours long, but it's put out by MSNBC, and it's called In the Dark of the Valley. If you will invest the time to watch that documentary, you will learn a lot of how the Department of Energy, the National Nuclear Security Administration, NRC, EPA, handle waste spills and releases within close proximity to highly densely populated residential areas. The lessons learned are applicable to our situation. Our major threat, in my view, is the pollution of the Rio Grande River and, of course, our highways and byways. So the documentary, which I'm not going to go into further, is about the Santa Susana Field Laboratory in California, in the vicinity of Los Angeles. And I think there's many parallels to Los Alamos and Sandia Labs. So we have a lot of nuclear material moving throughout our state. I'll give you an example. The National Nuclear Security Administration is about to ship 48.3 metric tons of surplus plutonium that is now stranded in North Carolina to the Los Alamos National Lab. There are no initiatives to stop this shipment. We are going to receive that material any day. It will go to Los Alamos. Los Alamos will recondition it. It will then be shipped to the waste isolation pilot plant in Carlsbad. The plutonium is the most hazardous substance known to man. The half-life is 24,100 years, but that's not the issue. The issue is it's dangerous to human life for approximately 750,000 years. So any incident of a mishandling or accidental discharge, you can see would be a critical issue to us. Now, in addition to this waste that's generated by the national labs and the Department of Energy on behalf of the Department of Defense, we have commercial operations that are starting up in and around our state. You know, there are 116 electrical power utilities that have been generating spent fuel rods for decades. Those rods are basically in ponds, water ponds, at the site of the power generation. And the NRC wants to clean up the US and get those rods off those sites. So, regrettably, Andrews County, Texas, which is 5 miles from Eunice, New Mexico, has just received a permit from the NRC to accept 40,000 metric tons of high-level nuclear waste that they are going to store. Now, they are already storing their low-level above ground, but now they're going to store high-level. This, to me, is an incredible threat to us. They're going to accept this waste into a private for-profit facility, not a governmental facility, which is a key point. Now, the current governor of Texas, Mr. Abbott, is just decided the Texas doesn't need this or want this. So he has filed a lawsuit to attempt to bar this startup, but he will lose. He will lose because for years, Texas has done nothing to stop the planning, the engineering, the proposals, and also, of course, the previous governor of Texas was our energy secretary. So they're Johnny come lately. NRC's issued the permit, it's coming. Similarly, a permit has been filed for another facility to take the other half of all the accumulated electrical waste that will be going near Carlsbad by the Holtec International Company. Now we have a break because only this week the NRC, in its final moments of deliberation, has decided that there may be problems with water incursion in the site due to earthquakes from fracking, and there are a lot of pipelines that are otherwise were not disclosed. So we may be able to block that. In addition, our Attorney General has filed a suit to try to block that private company from opening. Stay tuned. I want to get into what's going on at the WIP. The WIP is the Waste Isolation Pilot Plant. We, New Mexico, accommodated the federal government years ago, and we said, okay, for 25 years, we will accept low-level transuranic waste that is generated by the Department of Energy, the National Nuclear Security Administration, and the Department of Defense. We will accept it for 25 years on the supposition that the federal government would find alternate sites regionally located so that the waste would not have to be shipped across the country and that each state or several states would bear a similar burden. Well, here we are. The WIP is scheduled to close by federal statute, by law, on June 11th, 2024. The WIP also has another condition that it cannot accept more than 6.2 million metric cubic feet of material. And the third stipulation in the law is that it cannot receive high-level waste. The Department of Energy is reneging on that basic promise, but now statutory guidelines, in that they are hoping to keep the WIP open until the year 2080. Their hope stems from the fact that they have so much accumulated waste and nowhere to put it that they are basically saying, we have no choice. It was discovered a month, 6 weeks ago that DOE has expanded the underground vaults in the WIP without the permit required by the Department of State of New Mexico. State of New Mexico has joint jurisdiction over the WIP with the US EPA. So since April 2018, they have been excavating outside of their permit to enlarge the WIP. And the excavation was not only not allowed, but if they deviated from the permit, they were to make reports to the state of New Mexico, which they also failed to do. So they're not acting in good faith. and they must be monitored carefully. Luckily, we have about 20 non-governmental organizations in New Mexico that are very involved and very knowledgeable on these topics that I'm going to be talking about today, and they are on top of this to the point where they have filed a action for an administrative hearing in the New Mexico Court of Appeals to try to stop some of this non-compliance by the Department of Energy. I'm going to move on, although I could talk about maintenance problems at the WIP and other adverse developments, because I want to move and have some of our time here on the Los Alamos National Lab. The Los Alamos National Lab is known as the Queen of the Labs. It's one of 8 installations, I'll call them, which composes what's called the National Nuclear Complex. To build a nuclear weapon, you have to ship components, parts, plans, test data, materials between these 8 facilities on a rarely regular basis. So we have plutonium, uranium, tritium, cesium, other hazardous nuclear materials moving through our state on a continuous basis. Now, the National Lab has 4 missions. First mission is to produce 20 nuclear weapon triggers by the year 2026. The second mission is to accept and reprocess the 48.3 metric tons of stranded nuclear waste that we're about to receive. The third mission is to accept from the Pantex plant in Texas hundreds, if not thousands, of obsolete nuclear weapon triggers made of plutonium so that they can be placed into a storage site. Now, of course, there is no place they can be legally placed, but the plan is to reconfigure these plutonium pits so that they will be eligible for entrance into the WIP. Number 4, and lastly, they do other research, engineering, and development of other weapons of mass destruction. I want to point out that Los Alamos Lab has to be basically doubled or tripled in size in order to accommodate the mission it's been assigned. To that end, there is a effort to lease approximately 1 million square feet of office meeting space and lab space, which they're doing as we speak in Santa Fe. They have 4 separate sites now in Santa Fe they've set up because they can't do all their work on that little hilltop. They're working with the San Ildefonso Pueblo to lease space to set up trailer parks or double wide facilities for their incoming employees. They have built 2 parking garages at Los Al. They're going to build 6 more to handle the influx of employees. They have invested in this year more than $3 billion in infrastructure to either overhaul old buildings or build new buildings. They've asked that a 3rd electrical trunk line be installed to bring in the electricity they need. They have gone out to universities, high schools, middle schools, colleges within our state to start training programs for persons to work in their labs and their production facility, because they anticipate a 24/7 work schedule after 2028 to build the nuclear triggers. Now, what's got to happen? We have got to understand that we are getting ready to have a tsunami of traffic noise, possible contamination, overwhelming of all of our infrastructure if we do not get a hold of our local representatives. The 5 federal representatives are worthless as far as trying to stop this. They see this as some kind of patriotic mission. Do not even attempt to see them. But your county commissioners, your city council, and some of your state legislatures have to be brought on board to cause support for a site-wide environmental impact study, which the Department of Energy has heretofore refused to do. That's the only way we'll bring to the fore the impact, not just of New Mexico, but of the roads and highways and railways that are affected by shipping all these weapon components in and out of our state. And more importantly, to force the federal government to establish another storage site for low and high level waste so that we do not become the dumping ground for both the electrical, utility, generator industry, and also the federal government, which is what we do not need.
So city council members, county commissioners, county councilors, and state legislators are the ones that we need to target to enlist their support and opposition to this happening. And what we'll do at the end of this particular season is we're going to put up a list and make certain that everyone knows who those counselors are, who those commissioners are, so that we can become engaged in voicing our opposition and enlisting the support of our elected officials as you need. John Wilks, thank you ever so much for this information. This is another time to sound the alarm, and I appreciate you coming on, educating us. We're a lot smarter today than we were yesterday, thanks to your work here. And we're just going to keep going with this. And as things develop, I'm sure we're going to invite you back again to give us any updates that we need. Thanks again, John. Thanks for being on that Saturday show.
House out on Westfall, where we would hide when the rain rolled in. Where we would hide when the rain rolled in. Whoa. And late this one night, we took some flashlights, and these two girls that Colin knew from Kenwood Christian. One was named Lori, that's what the story said. The next week in the Guardian, said the next week in the Guardian. And when I killed her, it was so easy. I just wanted to kill her again. Well, I got down on both of my knees, and she ain't coming back again. No, she ain't coming back again. Then all these cameras snapping at my picture, feels like they can't see right through my skin. Looking for evil, thinking they can trace it, but evil don't look like anything. Evil don't look like anything.
Until the next time, it's time to say goodbye. When you out here in the streets, keep it real, 505. We love everybody, we just want to let you know. Thanks for tuning in to that Saturday show.